Since the dawn of time, humanity has been irresistibly drawn to the unknown. We have looked to the stars and wondered what lies beyond the black velvet of space. Yet few realize that the greatest mystery of all lies beneath our own world. The ocean, vast and silent, covers more than 2/3 of the planet, concealing ancient secrets beneath its cold, shifting skin. It is a place where light fades into eternal twilight, where strange forms of life whisper through the dark currents, and where time itself seems to sleep. For millennia, legends have risen from those depths, none more enduring than the tale of Atlantis. A city of splendor, wisdom, and impossible technology. A beacon of civilization that, as the story goes, vanished beneath the waves in a single night of fury. Scholars called it an allegory. Poets called it a dream. Yet the whispers never ceased. From Greek philosophers to modern explorers, humanity has searched for its traces, certain that somewhere, hidden under layers of water and myth, the truth still breathes. For millennia, we believed it was only a myth, until now. There is something ancient in that call, something that hums in the blood of every adventurer, every dreamer who has ever stared at the horizon and wondered what lies beyond it. The sea is not merely water, it is a mirror reflecting the human soul. It guards our fears and our hopes, our forgotten histories and forbidden knowledge. It is both cradle and grave, both silence and song. Now, as new technologies peer deeper into the abyss than ever before, the line between myth and memory begins to blur. Strange structures appear in sonar scans where there should be none. Echoes of language resonate in the deep, patterns too deliberate to be natural. The ocean, once thought to be a realm of emptiness, begins to speak again. Perhaps the old stories were not warnings or fantasies, but memories. Memories of a time when humanity was not yet divided between land and sea. And as the call of the depths grows stronger, one truth becomes undeniable. The ocean has been waiting for us to listen. The team had been assembled after years of careful selection, a mosaic of some of the brightest minds in oceanography, geology, and deep-sea engineering. Each carried a distinct kind of brilliance. Dr. Evelyn Carter, the geophysicist with an uncanny intuition for seismic patterns. Dr. Luis Almeida, a Portuguese marine geologist whose obsession with the tectonic mysteries of the Atlantic bordered on madness. And Commander Rachel Haynes, the pragmatic yet daring leader who had guided submersibles through the darkest trenches of the Pacific. Together, they formed the nucleus of our mission, a multinational scientific endeavor tasked with mapping the hidden folds of the mid-Atlantic ridge just off the enigmatic region of the Azores. At first, it seemed like a routine geological survey, another step in the ongoing attempt to understand the restless heart of the Earth beneath the Atlantic. The area was known for its dramatic tectonic activity, a place where the Earth's crust seemed to breathe, fracture, and renew itself. Using the latest submersible drone technology and high-resolution sonar imaging, the team descended into a world few had ever seen. An abyss where sunlight had never reached, where pressure crushed steel and time itself seemed to stand still. But as the data began to stream in, something changed. Amid the expected topographic patterns, basalt ridges, fault lines, and sediment plains, a strange signal began to appear. It was faint at first, almost indistinguishable from noise. Then, as the sonar sweeps repeated, the outlines became undeniable. Symmetry, geometry. At 8,000 meters below the surface, in one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth, there appeared to be structure, deliberate, angular formations that defied everything they knew about natural geology. The shapes were too precise, the alignments too deliberate. They formed patterns resembling corridors, terraces, even what looked like walls. At first, no one spoke. The control room inside the research vessel fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the hum of machines. Evelyn leaned closer to the screen, her breath fogging the glass. Luis's face turned pale, his lips trembling as he whispered something in Portuguese, a prayer or perhaps a curse. Commander Haynes stared, expressionless, as if waiting for the image to shift, to correct itself, to reveal the illusion for what it was. But it didn't. "What are we looking at?" someone finally asked. No one answered. Data analysts reran the scans. Instruments were recalibrated. The ocean was patient, offering no explanations. Every test returned to the same result. Beneath 8,000 meters of crushing darkness, there was something that shouldn't be there. The following hours were filled with frantic calculation and whispered speculation. Theories emerged, only to collapse moments later under their own improbability. Could it be a trick of sonar interference, a geological coincidence? Or had something ancient, something made, been lying there all along, waiting to be found? The deeper they looked, the stranger it became. Electromagnetic readings fluctuated unpredictably. Magnetic sensors registered local anomalies impossible to explain. It was as though the ocean floor itself was alive, responding to their intrusion. When the first submersible was finally sent down for visual confirmation, the crew gathered in silence. The camera descended slowly through the cold darkness. Kilometer by kilometer, pressure mounted, both on the craft and within their chests. Then, through the drifting clouds of sediment, the lights revealed a silhouette, vast, angular, impossibly symmetrical. Someone gasped. Another whispered, "It's not natural." No one spoke again for a long time. What they had discovered beneath the Atlantic would force humanity to reconsider everything it believed about its own past, and about what might still be sleeping far below the waves. In the shadowy depths of the ocean, where sunlight dissolves into darkness, strange forms have begun to emerge. Forms that defy the boundaries of what we know, and whisper of civilizations long forgotten. The sonar data was the first spark. Sharp, unmistakable lines cutting across the seabed, geometric patterns too precise, too deliberate to belong to nature. Circular configurations appear where there should be chaos. Symmetry, perfect mathematical symmetry, etched deep into stone. Experts at first dismissed the readings as errors, anomalies in equipment, or tricks of sediment. But when the underwater drones descended and captured the first images, disbelief turned to silence. Columns stood half buried in the sand, arranged in what seemed to be corridors or plazas. Massive blocks, interlocked with precision rivaling that of the pyramids, hinted at construction guided by intelligent hands. Some surfaces bore markings, faint yet organized, that some believe could be inscriptions, worn by centuries of currents, but still deliberate in their placement. The comparisons came swiftly. To the untrained eye, the structures echoed the architectural language of ancient Egypt, the massive pillars, the sense of divine scale. Others saw echoes of Mesopotamia's ziggurats, or the complex artistry of the Minoans. Yet the mystery deepens. The location of these discoveries does not align with any known center of ancient civilization. If genuine, it suggests one thing: an unknown culture, powerful and advanced, existed where none should have been. And then came the discovery that reignited one of humanity's oldest legends, fragments of a metallic alloy, unlike anything catalogued. Spectroscopic analysis revealed a composition eerily similar to the mythical orichalcum, the fabled metal said to have adorned the temples and walls of Atlantis. A metal described by Plato himself as second, only to gold in value and beauty. Scholars once dismissed orichalcum as poetic invention, a symbol rather than a substance. But the samples, glowing faintly with reddish-golden hues, challenge that certainty. Could these ruins truly belong to a lost civilization, perhaps even the one Plato described? Or are we witnessing a series of coincidences, nature's uncanny ability to mimic design? The scientific community remains divided, some calling for restraint and rigorous validation, others daring to believe that history, as we know it, is incomplete. Each new expedition only deepens the enigma. The sonar reveals more every month, new lines, new shapes, vast stretches of ordered chaos that seem to stretch beyond the reach of the cameras. The deeper the investigation, the more undeniable the evidence becomes. If these images are real, and many now argue they are, then humanity may be standing on the brink of rewriting its own origin story. Beneath the waves, hidden in the silence of the abyss, there may lie proof that our past is far older, far stranger, and far more extraordinary than we ever imagined. Among the vast archives of human thought, few stories have captivated the imagination as powerfully as Plato's account of Atlantis. Hidden within his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, the philosopher weaves a tale that blurs the boundary between myth and memory. A vision of a mighty civilization that flourished before recorded history, only to vanish beneath the sea in a single cataclysmic night. For centuries, scholars, dreamers, and explorers have tried to decode this enigma. Was Plato describing an allegory of moral decay, or a recollection of something real, a fragment of humanity's forgotten past? When we revisit Timaeus and Critias with a careful eye, a striking pattern emerges. Plato's description of Atlantis, a circular island empire ringed with water and land, ruled by kings descended from Poseidon, and rich in metals and knowledge, aligns curiously with certain geological formations found in the Atlantic Ocean today. The philosopher places the lost city beyond the Pillars of Heracles, the ancient term for the Strait of Gibraltar, situating it somewhere in the great ocean that separates Europe from the Americas. It is here, in this mysterious expanse, that a new wave of researchers have turned their gaze toward a particular group of islands, the Azores. The Azores, a Portuguese archipelago scattered across the mid-Atlantic, rise like emerald peaks from the deep ocean floor. Modern geological surveys reveal that these islands are, in fact, the visible summits of massive underwater mountains, remnants of a vast ridge that once might have stood higher above sea level. Some scientists and theorists suggest that these peaks could be the surviving tips of an ancient continental shelf, submerged by dramatic shifts in the Earth's crust or by the rising seas that followed the end of the last ice age. If we trace the timeline, an intriguing coincidence appears. Around 12,000 years ago, roughly the same period Plato assigns to the destruction of Atlantis, the world underwent a profound climatic transformation. The Pleistocene Ice Age drew to a close, and global temperatures surged. Vast ice sheets melted, sending torrents of water cascading into the oceans. Sea levels rose by over 100 meters, drowning coastlines and reshaping continents. Entire landscapes disappeared beneath the waves, erasing the physical footprints of any cultures that might have dwelled there. Could a once thriving civilization have been swallowed by this rising tide? Some researchers argue that ancient myths around the world preserve echoes of this catastrophe. From the Mesopotamian flood of Gilgamesh to the biblical deluge, and even the flood legends of the Americas and Asia, there is a recurring memory of a great inundation, a moment when the sea reclaimed the land and humanity was forced to begin anew. Perhaps Atlantis, rather than being a single lost city, is the poetic summation of this collective trauma. the memory of an age when human civilization, in its early brilliance, was humbled by nature's wrath. The Azores hypothesis remains speculative, yet tantalizing. Oceanographic expeditions have uncovered strange anomalies on the seafloor nearby, formations that appear too symmetrical to be entirely natural. While skeptics attribute them to volcanic processes or the play of light and shadow, others whisper that they might be the ruins of something more deliberate. Walls, roads, or terraces built by hands long vanished. The truth remains elusive, but the mystery endures deep beneath the Atlantic waves. Plato's dialogues were never mere fables. They were vessels of wisdom, encoded with moral and perhaps historical truths. In Critias, the philosopher warns that civilizations rise and fall in cycles, that arrogance and the neglect of virtue invite ruin. Yet, beyond this moral lesson, his words resonate with an eerie realism. In a single day and night of misfortune, he wrote, the island of Atlantis disappeared into the depths of the sea. Could it be that beneath layers of allegory lies a trace of memory, a distant echo from a forgotten world? Perhaps the Atlanteans were not gods or demigods, but an advanced maritime culture that thrived on lands now lost beneath the ocean. The Azores, standing like lonely sentinels in the Atlantic, may mark the graves of those mountains, and perhaps the first chapters of our shared prehistory. To contemplate Atlantis is to peer into the shimmering veil that separates myth from archaeology. It reminds us that beneath the oceans, under the silence of the deep, there may still lie maps of the past, waiting for the day when curiosity, technology, and imagination converge to bring them once more to light. It began like many other deep-sea missions, routine, calculated, perfectly planned. The ocean floor had always been a place of mystery, but this time something changed. During a recent expedition into one of the least explored trenches on Earth, a rhythmic, intelligent sound was detected, so precise, so deliberate, that it couldn't be mistaken for a natural phenomenon. At first, the researchers thought it was interference, perhaps the echo of their own equipment or the distant hum of tectonic movement. But as the minutes stretched on, the pattern persisted. A series of pulses, evenly spaced, repeating at exact intervals, like the heartbeat of an unseen mind. When translated into waveforms, the frequency displayed a haunting symmetry, mathematical in nature, recursive, as though following an algorithm far beyond human design. Then the malfunctions began. Cameras flickered out, sensors misfired, and digital logs began to rewrite themselves, looping sections of code that no one had programmed. One diver swore the water pressure monitors displayed prime numbers, an impossible glitch. Even the submersible's internal clocks drifted, seconds stretching and collapsing as though time itself bent under the signal's pulse. When the team surfaced, they expected to hand over the data to the research board for analysis. Instead, government officials were already waiting on the dock. The hard drives were confiscated under national security protocols. Every team member was briefed, signed non-disclosure agreements, and warned not to discuss the event publicly. Weeks later, the lead researcher received an anonymous message, no text, only an attached audio file. The same rhythm, the same mathematical precision. But now, hidden deep in the sound's spectrum, a modulation, a whispering resonance that almost formed words. Some said it was the ocean itself communicating, an ancient consciousness awakening beneath miles of crushing black water. Others believed it was something else entirely, something not from this world, something that had always been here, listening, waiting. Officially, the recordings never existed. The mission logs were scrubbed, and the coordinates of the trench were reclassified. But fragments of the signal continue to appear. Online forums, encrypted leaks, faint transmissions caught by amateur radio operators. Every time the sound is analyzed, new structures emerge: prime sequences, Fibonacci spirals, fractal harmonics. It's as if the abyss is trying to speak in the only language we might understand: mathematics. No one knows what it's trying to say. But deep beneath the waves, where sunlight has never reached, something is still sending the signal. And it's getting stronger. What if everything we thought we knew about the dawn of civilization was only the last chapter of a far older story? What if, beneath the sands of Egypt or the ruins of Mesopotamia, traces of a forgotten world still whisper? One that predates the pharaohs and the first scribes, a civilization erased by time, yet imprinted in myth? In recent decades, a series of archaeological anomalies have begun to disturb the traditional timeline. Sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, carbon dated to around 9,600 BCE, shattered the belief that organized religion, monumental architecture, and complex societies arose only after agriculture. Instead, it revealed a temple built by hunter-gatherers, or perhaps by a people far more advanced than history dares to admit. If true, this suggests that humanity's first civilization may have emerged thousands of years earlier than the textbooks claim, rewriting the origin story of culture itself. The implications for archaeology would be staggering. Such a discovery would force scholars to reevaluate the very foundations of human development, from language and cosmology to technology and trade. The accepted linear model of progress, where primitive tribes evolve step by step into urban societies, would crumble. In its place would rise a vision of cyclical history, civilizations rising and falling long before recorded history began, their knowledge buried beneath cataclysm and time. But the idea of a pre-Egyptian, pre-Sumerian culture invites both wonder and controversy. For every researcher intrigued by ancient anomalies, unexplained artifacts, advanced engineering, or astronomical alignments, there are many others quick to dismiss them as coincidence, pseudoscience, or mere myth. The debate often reveals more about human psychology than about archaeology itself. Scientists, bound by evidence and method, are wary of narratives that sound too extraordinary. Yet history has shown that impossible discoveries, from Troy to the deep origins of Homo sapiens, often begin as heresy before becoming accepted fact. And then comes the most unsettling question: why are so many discoveries ignored, dismissed, or even buried? It is not always conspiracy, but inertia. Academia is a fortress built on consensus, and any finding that threatens the timeline risks shaking that foundation. Funding, reputation, and authority depend on stability. Thus, data that doesn't fit the accepted narrative is quietly shelved, not destroyed, but forgotten in the archives of universities and museums. Still, the allure of the forbidden history persists. Every unearthed anomaly, every artifact that shouldn't exist, fuels a growing sense that our species has amnesia. Perhaps the flood myths, the lost continents, the celestial alignments are not mere metaphors, but encoded memories of a vanished epoch, a time when humans reached heights of knowledge only to be cast down by catastrophe. If the truth of an ancient, unknown civilization were ever confirmed, it would not simply add another chapter to history. It would rewrite the entire book. Beneath the rolling tides and the shimmer of sunlight that dances on the surface, there lies a world that remembers what humanity forgets. The ocean, vast, patient, and eternal, has become the keeper of our greatest secrets. It is not merely a body of water, but a graveyard of dreams, ambitions, and civilizations swallowed whole. Ships that once carried explorers, lovers, and conquerors now sleep in darkness, their stories preserved only by the cold and the silence. Some say the sea is merciful, that it covers our sins and gives us peace. But what if it is not forgiveness that it offers? What if it is warning? For every lost vessel, every sunken city, every whisper of a vanished world, the ocean murmurs the same question. What have we done to deserve its quiet? And then there is Atlantis, the myth that refuses to die. Perhaps it was never a myth at all, but a message left behind by those who came before us. A civilization blinded by its own brilliance, drowned by its own arrogance. Maybe they too believed they were untouchable, until the water rose and memory was erased. If Atlantis was real, then its disappearance was not a tragedy, but a prophecy. The silence of the deep is not empty. It listens. It waits. It holds everything we've cast away, both the physical and the forgotten. Lost cities, drowned empires, secrets we were never meant to uncover. The ocean has always been the final archive of truth, a place where history does not fade, only sinks deeper. So as we look out upon that endless horizon, we should ask ourselves not what lies beneath, but who. What voices echo through those submerged ruins? What truths have we buried under centuries of denial and salt? The answers may not comfort us, but they are there, waiting in the cold blue stillness. Because beneath the ocean's silence lies the sunken truth.